Thanks for joining us again for our second episode for this podcast, the Speed and Neuren Group. I'm Ross.
I'm Lindsay. We're so excited to have you. So something I've noticed lately is that we're definitely returning to seasonality. Before COVID, I always told my clients, if you're a seller, let's sell in the spring, summer. If you're a buyer, let's try to buy in the fall, winter when, things are sort of in your favor. And during COVID, right, the last 2.5 years, it's just been sort of, crazy in the seller's favor, for, all year round.
Yeah.
And now we're just returning to seasonality where this time of year, great time to buy, spring, great time to sell.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of other components going on right now that are affecting our market, but I feel like we can get hyper-focused on those things. They're real. They're worth acknowledging. We're doing it here now. But at the same time, we also have to look at the fact that we're entering Q4, which is typically the slowest time of year and the best time for buyers to get a deal.
Yeah.
So part of what's going on our market right now is connected to that as well. And, as we return to seasonality having an effect, we should see the inverse of that once we get into, the back end of Q1 and the start of Q2 when we're in our typical selling season. What is that bump going to do to this market when there's natural pressure for people to start buying homes?
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of buyers lately and I'm saying, if we can find you something between now and end of year, I think we're going to get you a really good deal because the people that are keeping their house on the market, past probably November 15th, they really want to sell before the end of the year, right? They're motivated. They're doing price reductions. I think that they're going to be really, open to negotiating. So if we can find you something that you like, between now and the end of the year is going to be, I think, the best time to buy.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely an argument to be made that now is the time to strike because of the amount of uncertainty in the market. There are buyers that they're moving Austin. They're going to buy eventually, but they're stepping back. If you're one of those buyers willing to come forward right now, there's going to be sellers out there that are willing to negotiate.
Yeah, and you can see that in the rental market, right? The rental market hasn't really taken much of a hit. And so I think you're seeing basically some buyers tap out of buying, but they're still in Austin and they're still renting, and they're probably going to come back into the market once interest rates fall.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this before, but I'm getting the question asked all the time now, will your client or landlord do rent to own? I hadn't heard that in 10 years. And now we get it every single week. And I think that what that tells me is these people want to own. They will eventually own.
They want to stay in Austin, right? Like they see their future here.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. It's just, I think, the economy has caused some people to pause.
Yeah.
But, you want to buy when things are low. You want to buy when things are, near the bottom. And, I think that that's probably going to be now or the next 2 months.
Right. Agreed. I mean, I think the next 3 months are going to be a better time to buy because of that seasonal pressure than, the first 3 months of the year in all likelihood. But
yeah, I think it's probably the best time to buy in Austin in 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Is right now, right? Just based on what we're seeing in terms of lack of competition.
Yeah, I mean, the best time in the last 10 years, if you're looking at it from, the buyers being in a position of strength, relative to the sellers,
Yeah.
I mean, we're still selling homes on the listing side. We had multiple offers on one of our team's listings this week. Houses are still moving, and depending on the pocket you're in, sometimes with a lot of people interested. But, from a buyer standpoint, if you're looking now, you're kind of blazing a path, apart from the group, and you might have opportunities because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in new construction, we're seeing tons of motivation to reduce prices before the end of the calendar year. So if you're looking for new construction between now and, Christmas is the time.
So something unique that I'm seeing in the new construction world, especially with the larger production builders, is they had a record number of sales at the beginning of this year, but it was taking 12 to 16 months to build these homes. And so when the market shifted, they had a lot of people that were halfway into or almost done who ended up walking away because they saw values go down or they couldn't afford the home anymore because of interest rates. So now these builders around town have this glut of inventory they never planned to have, right? And so there's this push by these builders to try to get back to normal. They want to get rid of this inventory that they never intended on having. So they're extremely negotiable. In this last quarter of the year, I think there's going to be some extremely strong deals with the builders. But once they get rid of those, that window will have closed and they'll be back to business as usual. And they won't have as much pressure because they won't have the unwanted inventory still.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's where our team has seen the best deals, right? We're getting good deals on resale, but we're getting killer deals in new construction, right? I think that's where we're seeing, the sellers be the most motivated to work with buyers for really, really good deals.
Yeah, I mean, there's two different types of sellers in this market. We talked about it before: people who are willing to sell and people who have to sell, right? Mm-hmm. And builders have to sell. That's their business. And especially they have to sell when they have stuff on their books that they never planned to have to begin with. They had a buyer in mind that, built the home, picked the selections, and now they're stuck selling that with that previous buyer's design choices, right? So they're motivated.
And that's a different type of seller than a resale seller. Yeah, so we'll touch on that in a little bit, but it's definitely a different type. It's a corporation, right? They have to sell. They have quotas. It's very different than a resale, seller who may or may not just be testing the market, may not need to sell. So we'll touch on that in a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, there's bigger swings with those production builders. They might have a community that's doing really well and have one that's struggling. Well, they can do some crazy incentives in the ones that's struggling to get out. It's different when you own one home and you're an owner occupant, right?
Absolutely. And they can really work with you on interest rates. They can do these incentives, not only getting killer deals for clients on price, but like getting them to do 2-1 buy downs where they're getting your interest rate way down, right? They're able to do a lot more than maybe the resale seller is in terms of interest rates as well.
Yeah, I mean, the three things they've been attacking is: one, price, obviously, trying to get that down for buyers; two, reducing the cash required to purchase, so covering portions of the buyer's closing cost; and three is getting the interest rate down either in a short-term way, like with an ARM or a 2-1 buy down, where it's going to be down for the next couple of years, and then you'll have the opportunity to refinance, or buying it down altogether from a long-term 30-year standpoint, right? But helping them get their monthly payment down. But that's how we're seeing them incentivize people to buy right now, and they're doing it in significant ways.
Yeah, we definitely have two different type of sellers when it comes to resale, right? So we've got sellers who are putting their house on the market. They're probably, have a 2.5-3% interest rate. They want to sell, but they don't have to sell, right? There's a difference. They'll sell for X price, but they're not going to be doing tons of price reductions, huge price reductions, and they're not going to be super motivated to, negotiate a ton off of the price.
Right.
A lot of those, sellers I'm seeing, probably will stay on the market for a couple more weeks. They'll probably pull it if they don't sell for the price they want, and then they'll list again in the spring when, typically we have a stronger market. Then we're seeing people who are listing their home, they're doing price reductions, and those are the type of people that I think will stay on the market past Thanksgiving and, into Christmas. And so if you see someone that stays on the market past Thanksgiving and they are doing more price reductions, those are really the type of, deals you're going to want to go after, right? Because they're motivated. Yeah. They have to sell. I mean, they're moving or they need to financially sell, right? I'm sure there's totally different reasons, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, to your point with the resale buyers, there are folks right now are putting their homes on the market to test it, but are fully willing to withdraw the listing if they can't get a number they want.
Absolutely. I saw so many withdrawals over the last month. I think we're getting more withdrawals than even new listings at this point.
Yeah. And I think there's a misconception that withdrawn listings is an indicator that, the buyers are in a stronger position, but it's really kind of the opposite. I mean, it's showing that the sellers are in a position of strength financially where they don't have to sell. They can wait it out till they can get a higher number.
Yeah.
And because of that, we're seeing inventory level out. I mean, we went from 3.8 months of inventory to 3.9 months of inventory. And that's not because we're selling through all the new listings that are coming on. It's because we're selling some. And then the other sellers have said, we've had enough. We'll wait. We'll wait a year for the market to come back around. We believe in us, and we believe that companies are still moving here, jobs are still moving here, and we'll get more later.
Yeah. And as a buyer's agent, it's my job to really find the sellers that are super motivated, right?
Sure.
So I'm looking at the listing, saying, how long has it been on the market? How many price reductions have they done? Are they actively marketing it, right? You can kind of tell when you look at a listing, are they motivated? Are they just, has it been sitting on the market for 60 days with no price reduction? You can kind of tell, who's motivated, who's not. And those are really the type of deals I'm really trying to go after for my buyers.
Well, absolutely. I mean, identifying what type of seller is on the home they like, right? Because, we have buyers that fall in love with homes where the seller isn't desperate, but if this is a long-term purchase for them, even if the seller's not desperate, we can still get a relatively good deal for Austin, Texas right now, but for those buyers who are looking strictly for a deal, and there's some telltale signs of, what position that seller's in, right? And it's like you said, it's our job to kind of identify that so we can get the best deal for our clients.
Yeah.
So I think what's also important to talk about is the fact that our market is stabilizing to a degree. Being that we're going into the back half of the year, the last quarter of the year, we'll probably see values continue to dip a little bit. But at the beginning, we saw inventory surge. We saw values kind of, I wouldn't say plummet, but drop relatively quickly.
Right. I mean, the inventory skyrocketed over the summer, and we're just not seeing, we're seeing it sort of plateau, right? Yeah. There's inventory coming, but it's not at the level of how fast it came on over the summer.
Yeah. I mean, we were at 3.8 months of inventory last month, and we're not over 4 this month, right? So that's definitely tapered off. And then we're seeing, the average price, which in the Travis County area is $550,000. It's slowing down. I mean, it's the drop is slowing down and leveling out, which was kind of what we expected. There was an adjustment, there was a correction, and now we're kind of facing a new normal, which doesn't mean values will stop changing.
Well, in fact, I mean, like that 550 amount, that's still 5% above what it was this time last year, right? So, which is sort of more of a normal year for Austin, right? Like these years where we're seeing 20, 30, 40% appreciation was, in my opinion, an anomaly, right? Yeah. It was just COVID anomaly. But we're seeing about 5% increase in prices over the last year. And, that is what it was before COVID.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So, I mean, we're still at a healthy level of appreciation for the year. We might end up getting to the end of the year and values are where they were to begin with. But if you talk to people or read articles, you would think that we lost everything from this year in the last 4 years before. But that's not the reality of where we're at.
I think for the majority of the appreciation growth in Austin over COVID has held.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I think another thing is that a lot of people not only, has their values, they've held that they bought over COVID and they've made some money and those values have held, but also they got in at like historically low interest rates, right? And that's something that probably we'll never see in our lifetime again.
Yeah. I mean, and for people out there wondering, like, how could values stay where they're at right now with, interest rates going up and, all the uncertainty out there. And it's really 2 simple things. One, we need inventory to continue to go up for values to drop quickly, right? And the reason why it's not, and it's something we touched on before, is people are fine staying where they're at.
Yeah.
The job market has stayed very resilient, so people are employed. They can pay, their debts, and their interest rate's 3%. So they're not highly motivated to sell in some situations to go get a 7% interest rate somewhere else. So there's this lock-in effect where people aren't selling because of it. So there's less inventory. And then once again, we don't have distressed properties. There's some people that, want to sell or need to sell, I should say. But because the job market's been resilient, these people are employed in Austin and willing to ride out the storm, So values will stay relatively level, maybe drop slightly, as long as inventory doesn't explode. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing it trending towards plateauing more than anything.
Right.
But let's have a conversation about what we're hearing from Fannie Mae right now. Last time we sat down, their latest projections were showing that they thought interest rates could be down in the 4s as early as Q1 or Q2 of next year.
Yeah.
With the latest inflation report, that's no longer the projections, right? And it's worth acknowledging. So it looks like at this point what Fannie Mae thinks will happen in 2023 is maybe slight interest rate relief, but for the most part in 2023, rates staying, the 5 to 6% range, maybe slightly over 6%. The next couple months are going to be really telling on the inflation reports that we get in.
Yeah, it probably depends on, what it says and then what the Fed's going to do. This makes me think next year will be very similar to what we've been seeing the last, 2 to 3 months. I think we'll see a continued slowdown in terms of home sales, but I don't know if we're going to see prices, dropping drastically over the next year. I think the next year, 2023, is going to be a great opportunity for buyers to get in the market before the economy recovers. Because I think once the economy recovers and interest rates go back down, we're going to see an uptick in home prices. So I think, if you're a buyer and you're looking to get in the Austin market in the next 3 years, I think 2023 is going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, it could. I mean, I could see the opposite in the spectrum. Like, and this is, us guessing and looking at different data and putting it together to try to come up with an idea what could happen. But ultimately, like, I think if we just get to a point where we know where we're at, there's some consistency, right? Inflation numbers have come down, but we know rates are going to stay higher than they were the last couple of years. And buyers can go into this going, okay, well, I'm not going to be buying at a time where there's going to be a big drop in a month from now, right? If we get that consistency, I think people will start to enter the market again, and we could actually see things shift back to maybe even a slight seller's market, right? People are still not scared to spend money. That's why we have a problem with inflation, right? They're scared to spend money right now in some situations because they don't want to buy high, right? But if we can give them reassurance, or if there is some reassurance in the market that this is just the new reality, things are going to move along kind of smoothly. There's not going to be a dramatic change up or down from where we're at right now. I think people want to buy homes from all indications we're getting, either anecdotally or just, from the market studies we're seeing of the people moving to town.
Absolutely. I mean, we still have people calling us every week moving to Austin. We still have renters calling us every week that want to buy in Austin. And so I think there's still a lot of demand here. I think people are sort of waiting to see how everything shakes out. But I think that this is, this recession we're in is going to be longer than a few months, right? I think it's our new reality. And I think that, we'll see what happens in the spring. Indicators from like 2008, 2009 show that like in the spring market in 2009, even though we were in a big recession, there was an uptick in the market. So, I'm curious to see if we return to that seasonality that we had before COVID.
No, I agree. And there's a recession is a macro event, right? We're working in Austin, Texas, which is, in residential real estate, which is very localized, right? So we could be going through a recession nationally and globally for that matter. And still see our real estate market start to thrive a little bit, and come back to a degree because these companies that are moving here and these people that are moving here still need places to live, right? And so it'll be interesting to see what happens from that standpoint. But the soft landing that we were hoping for from economy standpoint, it doesn't look like that's a likely option at this point. It's probably, to your point, going to be maybe a year or two before we pull out of this, and time will tell on how serious it'll be.
We'll see what happens.
Conversations we've been having with agents on our team, when talking to these buyers who are hesitant about purchasing in the Austin area, one thing that we always ask them to talk about is, the decision to buy a home is a long-term decision. It really should be. Even in, your average market, it takes about 4 years of home ownership to be able to sell and break even. That's historically been the case, right? So if you're looking to buy a home now, but you're worried about what the next year or 2 years is going to look like, as long as you feel comfortable in your own financial situation, even if the next year or two we do see continued, slight drops in values, after we come out of that, if you believe in the Austin area relative to anywhere else in America, this is still where you'd want to purchase, and it still makes sense to purchase because it's a long-term decision.
Yeah. And if I have a client who's saying, okay, I think I'm going to, I always ask them, how long do you think you'll be in the house, right? Because that gives me an idea of sort of what their plan is. And so if they're thinking 2 to 3 years and then they're going to move on, we then look at the property. Okay, can this be a really good investment property? Can you rent it out really easily and for top dollar in 2 to 3 years when you move on to your next property? Can you save enough money for another down payment, right? So a lot of my clients really want to build a real estate portfolio in Austin. And so they're seeing their first home. Yes, this is the first home. They're going to live in it, but they're also seeing it as their first rental property.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So making sure that they're buying in the right areas that are going to provide them the opportunity to turn that into a really strong rental property is something that I've talked to a lot of my clients about right now.
And it's smart. Yeah. And beyond that too, the conversation there is, well, what if we want to move out in 3 years, but the market hasn't recovered enough for where our return on the sales where we want it to be? Well, if you've lived in your home for 2 years as a primary resident, you can lease it for 2 years and still sell it and not pay capital gains tax up to $500,000 for a married couple, because the law is if you have occupied a home as your primary residence for 2 of the last 5 years, then you do not pay capital gains up to that amount I just shared. So you can extend that even further if you still want to sell, but you want your return to be higher. There's a way to kick the can down the road.
Yeah. And I typically, when I talk to buyers, I'm like, do you see yourself in this house for 3 to 5 years? And if the answer is yes, then that's probably a good house for them if they want to stay in Austin for 3 to 5 years. Obviously, people's life changes, right? They might have to move out for a job change. Luckily, the rental market is still really good in Austin, really strong. So even if there is that sort of life change that you didn't expect, renting that place out for a few years until it's the right time to sell is a great option.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we love our team, and we love kind of the brain trust it's become and the amount of sharing we can do. And I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of aspiring agents, new agents, who one of the first questions they ask is, what are the advantages of being on the team? And, sometimes it gets to that point because they ask where they should start when they start in the business. Mm-hmm. I recently had an opportunity to talk to a Baylor student who's looking into getting in residential real estate and had some questions for me. And, one of my first suggestions is, find a team to be a part of when you get into this industry.
We both started on a team.
We both did.
We did. So go ahead, keep going.
Well, I was just going to say, the reason why is it's tough to get started. It's tough to find a stream of business and people who are confident working with you. But if you're in a team, sometimes those leads are built in, like on our team, right? Also, as a team member, you get to use the awards, the accolades, the trophies on the wall, if you will, as part of your ammunition when you're talking to people, right? Any one of our agents can talk about the amount of business we as a team has done and the brain trust they get to go back to ask questions. So they're getting us as a team as a resource as well.
Yeah. And real estate can be a very lonely business, right? You can feel like you're kind of on your own. And so, when you're on a team, I feel like you've got a lot of people to lean on. You've got us as mentors. We've got a full operations team that's going to support them. So I feel like it's easier to, in my opinion, to ramp up your business quickly on a team because you're surrounding yourself with people that have been doing it for a while. Yeah. You can learn from them and you're still really running your own business. I think there's a misconception that when you're a team, you're not running, you're still an independent contractor. You're still running your own business, growing your client base. And I think you're just able to do it quicker and more efficiently by being on a team than trying to tackle it individually.
Yeah. You've got a backstop. And like to your point, it's a lonely business. And even if you're a self-starter and confident, there's going to be slow times. There's going to be tough times. And it's good to have a team around you to support you and try to get through those, low points and get things going again. And then I would say I love the idea of inexpensive experience and expensive experience. Okay. We've been doing this a while. We've sold a lot of homes. We have a lot of expensive experience where we had to go through it and go, oh, that's how you should do it. Right. As an agent on our team, because we're constantly talking and sharing advice, when that problem comes up in the future, it's inexpensive for them. I can tell them this is what you need to do because I've been through it before. Yeah. Definitely don't do it this way. Do it this way. And then they seamlessly move on. So they get to operate as an agent who's done thousands of sales because of the experience we lend to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got a lot of people relocating to Austin because they've heard about how cool it is and how much stuff there's to do. And, the downtown living has its appeal, obviously, to a lot of these people. They want to be in the middle of it, but with where prices are still at there, that might not be possible for a lot of them. But the suburbs and the surrounding cities are still great options for these buyers, and people I've helped are loving it. I think important distinction is like a suburb in Austin. Like I live in Lakeway and people think I'm way out in the middle of nowhere. I'm 20 minutes from downtown.
So, I think there's this like perspective that if you're not right downtown, you're far from stuff. But I have clients buying in Easton Park. I have clients buying in, Buda. They're all literally 20 minutes from downtown. So I think that, for a lot of those clients, a lot of them are first-time home buyers, right? They want to keep their budget, something that they're comfortable with. Yeah. And they also need more space, right? They can't live in a one-bedroom condo. A lot of them are working remotely. So they need 2 to 3 bedrooms. Right. They want a yard. A lot of them have dogs. And so it's great for them because during the week, they work from home. They have, the space that they need. It's comfortable. But on the weekends, they're 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes from downtown. They're South Congress. It's not like they're very far from stuff. They're not driving an hour to go go to cool restaurants and go to shows.
Yeah.
They're driving 15, 20 minutes max. So I feel like it's all relative. There's still opportunities to buy homes at affordable prices within, 20 minutes of, downtown. And then, the growth we've seen in North Austin, there's tons of restaurants up there.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to go downtown to go out.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Domain, which is on its way to being a second downtown for us down the line with great restaurants, great places to go out. And with the dynamic population growth we see some major commercial investments coming. And I mean, there's a development in Leander that it's going to be commercial with, shops and restaurants, but it's going to have a lagoon where you can go swimming in it, right? There's so many things being added all over town. And personally, I live in Lakeway, which is west of downtown. And although, during the week, maybe we're 35 minutes away from downtown, I'm 5 minutes from the lake, so you still get the taste of Austin in plenty of different areas, even if you're not sitting in the middle of 78704.
Right. But I just don't have a lot of clients that are, driving an hour to get, downtown, especially on the weekends where there's almost no traffic, when they're really going to see their friends or go out, dinner. I mean, I'm talking maybe the farthest I feel like I have clients buying is, 30 minutes from downtown on the weekends.
Yeah.
So.
When do you want to be relatively close to downtown is what I talk to people about.
Not during rush hour.
Exactly. Right. So if you plan on going downtown on the weekends, then you're probably going to be 20 to 30 minutes away from downtown and many of the suburbs around Austin.
Or East Austin. I mean, it's super close.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. It's a great place. I mean, it's exploding too. I mean, East Austin will soon, I think, have an argument that they've got better restaurants in downtown.
East Austin does have better restaurants.
See, there you go. Right. Yeah. So, there are plenty of places you can live around Austin and still get the Austin feel.
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, can you give me 3 of your favorite places outside of downtown Austin?
Okay. So I love Spicewood, out west. It's beautiful hill country. It's, a little bit farther than Lakeway, but I feel like you get more for your money and it's just gorgeous and you're still on the lake. Mm-hmm. So I love that for anyone that's looking for hill country lake type of vibe. Mm-hmm. Any of our first time home buyers, that are looking for, to get into the market, but not be too far from downtown. I love Easton Park, and I love Buda for those, 2 type of buyers. In North Austin, I actually think, the Northwest Hills Spicewood Estates area. I think it's an amazing area. I feel like it's 20 minutes from downtown. It's got incredible schools and you're kind of at the start of the hill country. So you get that hilly green topography,
right.
And the prices are still really good for, top rated schools. I feel like that is an amazing location.
Absolutely.
What about you, Ross?
So I'm gonna pick out 3, but I can make a case for plenty more, right? So I like Lakeway. I mean, we live out there, so I know it probably best, right? Yeah. But close proximity to the schools. I love kind of just the atmosphere, and then just it's its own bubble where kind of everyone knows everybody. You almost get a little small town feel to it, but you're close to downtown as well, relatively close. Schools are great. We're getting more restaurants, more shopping, and you're in the hill country, which I'm partial to. North Austin. I like Hutto actually. Hutto is, I think, an opportunity. It's a growing suburb. It's got a lot of new development there, so it feels really nice and clean. And with the massive Samsung investment of $7 billion in Taylor, which is or just the next town over, I think a lot of that growth from Samsung is actually going to help Hutto. So from an investment standpoint, I really like that area. And then if we're talking, south, personally, I think that, San Marcos, even between Kyle and Buda, that area, the streams, the rivers, kind of in that area, and then the affordability, it's a little bit farther commute to Austin. But if you're doing one of those jobs where you only have to drive into the office maybe one time a week, it's actually kind of one of those hidden gems. There are very few of those left in the Austin area, but just a place I was looking with buyers a couple weeks ago. I was like, yeah, I
love the
nice.
Buda downtown. I think it's really charming and cute, and I feel like it feels like a small town feel, but you're only about 20 minutes from downtown, so I love that area as well. The other area I really love is Cedar Park. So the reason I love Cedar Park, it's one of the closest suburbs. So again, you're not going to be very far from the Domain. You're not going to be very far from downtown. The schools are really good, and it's still pretty affordable. So Cedar Park is one of my favorite suburbs of Austin. I think there's just so many amenities out there. You don't feel like you're really far from stuff. you can drive around Cedar Park and there's pretty much every place you want to go shopping or running errands. So I feel like you kind of get the pros of the suburbs without being so far away from everything, which I really think is like really valuable for a lot of families that move there.
Yeah, you got the schools, you got the golf courses, you got the parks. And,
but you're, 20, 30 minutes from downtown, 15 minutes from the Domain. So I feel like you're kind of, in the closest suburb location-wise. And it's really pretty. I mean, it gets really hilly out there, green. It's beautiful.
Thanks for joining us again. Join us again next time where we just continue to talk about Austin and Austin real estate.
Absolutely. See you next time.